Lamont Young piece, Arabic numeral bracket any integer for Henry Flint, which was kind of the kind of cornerstone of experimental music, I suppose, and in a way sort of minimal music really, and the sort of distillation of the whole process of that, like I was saying earlier, that simple premise, complex results kind of thing. It's a very, I wouldn't say the ultimate. I hate the word ultimate. It's kind of a dumb word, but it's a very clear realization of that principle. So the idea of that was to present that piece. It was always a piece that I wanted to do, but to present it as a group, and I was able to do it in such a way that that we could create 3 hours or so of, or actually 3.5 hours in the end of musical material with no rehearsal and no real preparation, because that was the only way that I could do it. Again, there's no way that I was going to get all those people together in one place for even one rehearsal, let alone what you normally require for a performance of that length. But because the idea had sufficient clarity, then it wasn't just simply a jam, or it wasn't just simply a sort of mishmash as it could have been. It wasn't people simply getting together and doing their own thing with that. It was highly structured, it was highly focused, and the idea and the intention was strong enough that people felt, went with it really, and were amazingly supportive, and some amazing performances and experiences and lessons and whatever else came out of it. We've been working as a trio for a while, and basically based on a principle, I suppose, that I'd come up with for generating music, just to do with the idea of creating a sort of slow rate of change between players, that it would be improvised and yet structured. And we'd worked on that for a while and not really, I hadn't been quite satisfied with the results, and it sort of lost inertia, I suppose. So actually the fact that drummer didn't turn up, and Don and I were just working together, we realised that actually worked way better with just the two of us. So that became Infinite Decimals, and we occasionally play, but we no longer rehearse. We just simply play at shows, and we'll just do maybe a 25-35 minute set. Like I said earlier, for a long time I wasn't really interested in producing things that were just recordings. It's not that I'm not a fan of records as well, but at least for my own work I wasn't quite sure what that would be if I were to do it. An album, My Arms Are Hollow Tubes, which is kind of my first sort of solo album, I guess, which is sort of guitar, piano based. What started out just as improvisations, as one take. Each track was really just a one take improvisation, literally one take. A couple of them have overdubs, but mostly solo performance, and then that was layered with analog treatments. I'm a particular fan of things like tape echo and spring reverb, because I'm a huge fan of dub reggae, so King Tommy, Lee Perry, all of those guys, and knew a little bit about some of those techniques, having worked with engineers in the UK who'd helped produce reggae records by people like Dennis Bovell and the sort of the UK reggae scene. So I had a bit of an insight into how it was done.
That's good.
So kind of, and I'd been applying those techniques in stuff I was doing with Simon Whitehead as well, in a live sense. So you either using environmental recordings and sort of dubbing them, or using ambient microphones and feedback and delay lines and stuff like that to create a similar kind of process. I like that organic process of again, complexity coming out of simplicity yet again. a lot of my favourite gear. It was being thrown out at the Royal College studio when they were moving studios, and I literally rescued it. And also my spring reverb, which is basically a very old-fashioned form of reverb unit, and it's literally a bunch of springs with a microphone at one end and a kind of transducer, a little speaker at one end and a transducer at the other end. But it just has this wonderfully sort of living kind of quality to it. Used in, like, if you've ever heard any early, well, any mid to late 70s dub records, they've always got the spring reverb. That's that big crashing kind of booming echo sound. Yeah, well, that's more the tape echo, but that, you know, the kind of the reverby sound is the spring reverb. So those two things are kind of the basis of what I do for most of my treatments, and really sort of took that as far as I could in terms of layering up different kinds of echoes with the guitar, creating phasing effects with the tape and that kind of thing. Also as a way of kind of warming up. I guess the other recording project that I've done since then has been creating a set of lullabies for my son, or actually for us as much as for him. And I kind of got interested in the idea of a lullaby as a musical form. You know, there's so many CDs of lullabies and stuff like that on the market, but really they're not something that you can really fall asleep to. For one thing, you know, they're 2 minutes of one thing and then you get 2 minutes of another thing, and I kind of thought, well, how can you fall asleep to that? So I set about creating very slowly evolving tracks, so just very gentle melodies with a number of parts that would gradually, I mean very gradually, over a 2 to 5 minute period, a part would maybe fade up and then fade down again. So very almost imperceptibly evolving kind of tunes. Formally, I guess it would be a ground bass. It's actually an ancient kind of pre-classical kind of form in that you've got a repeating bass line and then you've got a set of interlocking parts that you simply slot in over the top. It's always been a form I've been interested in. So, but yeah, I was interested in actually creating a sort of more functional lullaby that you could actually use to lull somebody to sleep, or to help us whilst we were trying to lull Ruben to sleep, because, you know, it can take 2 or 3 hours to get him to sleep. And so I made this CD of these 3 lullabies, and we'd put it on every night when he was asleep, and often it would run all night. And you know, we all must have listened to that CD hundreds of times, and occasionally, just every now and again, he asks to listen to it at night to help him sleep.
Elvis, zie je geen teamler?
Still a lot of what I do definitely is music, and even if it's not music by other people's definitions, like I say, I prefer expanding definitions to narrowing them down.